Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable. The Hero Mindmine Summit 2017, Hero Enterprises' flagship event, was held in New Delhi recently. The theme for the 11th edition of the summit was Disruption, the New Normal for India. Sunil Munjal, the chairman of Hero Enterprise, spoke about the inception and the impactful journey of the Mindmine Summit. The chief guest at the summit, Union Minister for Urban Development, Venkaiah Naidu, listed the disruptive initiatives taken by the government. This was followed by the keynote address by the guest of honor, Railway Minister Suresh Prabhu, where he saluted the organizers for instituting a platform that was primed to offer innovative solutions in these turbulent times.
The Mindmine Summit was launched in 2006 as a response to people constantly saying, we need to do something as people as well. For too long, we have just pointed a finger at the government and said the government should be doing this or the government is not doing this. And around the world, independent think tanks are an active part of policy making, of regulations and advice for policy makers. What started off as a casual conversation amongst 3 or 4 people has turned into the largest independent event right now in the country.
Before I begin my speech, I would like to salute my salutation to late Brijamohan Munjalji, who is the pioneer of the Make in India program in India. Friends, it is this seeming paradox that disruptive innovation in governance aims to target. Disruption in governance is to initiate change and alter the established order, heralds an economy armed with the ammunition of a seamless governance and procedures and digital technology that can reap efficiencies, remove deficiencies, and catalyze proficiencies. I would like to give you a small glimpse into the list of disruptions made by the government to make the country a better place for its people. Demonetization. The historic decision to demonetize higher value currency denominations of 1,500 is one of the most disruptive and impactful steps taken to curb the 3-pronged menace of black money, counterfeit currency and corruption. It has completely overhauled India's cash economy and money circulation. The GST is the second disruption. The goods and service tax is a path-breaking reform and disruption aimed at unifying the country into a single market and simplifying the current complex and opaque indirect tax administration. Third one, digital payments. The increased push given to the digital modes of payment is altering the financial payments ecosystem. This disruption has altered behaviors and changed age-old habits in the way business is transacted in our nation. Cooperative Federalism. The Prime Minister believes in Cooperative Federalism because India is a huge country with 130 crore population. You have different states, you have different languages, you have different attitudes, you have different political parties leading different governments. We must all work together. If India has to develop, the states has to develop. Without states developing, you cannot develop India. I am sure, friends, the Mindmine Summit 2017 discuss and offer solution to some of the pressing issues facing the world nations and also in India.
Over a period of time, we thought there is only one model that exists somewhere in the world. There was one American model, there was another USSR model, both first collapse of course way back in 1991, other one is under big question mark. So therefore there is nothing like a model which you can follow. And obviously that means that you must develop your own ideas. And if you are developing your own ideas, they again cannot be static. As we have seen, the changes are so rapid and at such a pace that whatever we do has to constantly be subjected to change, and that's what we are really trying to do, and therefore I am very happy that we are doing this event. And the theme of the conference is what's the new normal? Is the disruption new normal? I think there is nothing like normal anymore. The normal is that we have to constantly keep thinking, constantly keep changing. So I once again congratulate Sunil and his colleagues, and also I thank all of you for being part of this process of bringing in change in India in the shortest possible time by bringing new thinking, new approach and new work culture. That is also as important as bringing in the new thinking. So all the best to you. Congratulations once again and thank you very much.
Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Jayant Sinha, shared his insight on the Indian aviation sector and its blueprint for prosperity in 2017.
Can you tell us what are the 2 or 3 big plans that you have right now which you think will make this mission work? What is being done right now which is different from what was done? Because we did have an open skies policy, we did build some of the larger airports, but we've still not gone into the hinterland. So what are you doing differently right now?
Aviation is a very important sector for the economy as we want to move towards friction-free growth. And we need to bring the benefits of aviation and connectivity to as many places as possible. So with UDAN, we've come up with a regional connectivity scheme which provides an incentive, a subsidy for people to really open up tier 3 and tier 4 cities. Ludhiana, which you will appreciate, Sunil, Jamshedpur, Kanpur, Gwalior, Agra, Gorakhpur, cities like this which are very large, very vibrant cities themselves, but had very poor air connectivity. So with UDAN, we've really unleashed this regional aviation market so that now in just 1 year, we've added 33 new airports to the aviation market. Previously, we had 75 airports that were operational. With UDAN, in 1 year, we've added 33 new airports. Just coming back to your first question, Sunil, what are the 3 major game-changing initiatives? Number 1, opening up the sector dramatically. Number 2, taking a passenger-centric focus. Number 3, unlocking the regional aviation market through UDAN. These are the 3 game-changing things we've done in aviation virtually in the last couple of years.
You know, worldwide, there are only 5 airlines which actually make money consistently. All 5 of them have an identical business model. And sometimes one wonders, why do more airlines not follow this path if it is known that this makes money? When you ask them the question, most of these airlines in India at least, the low-cost airlines, say we are actually low-priced airlines. We are not low-cost airlines. We park at the same airports, we pay the same taxes, we pay the same parking charges, we pay the same fuel charges. Every cost we're paying is the same. Worldwide, low-cost airlines actually have a lower cost, because they have infrastructure which is available to them at a lower cost. Is that a model which you think is viable in India to allow 2 parallel tracks to run?
The particular challenge that we have in aviation in India is while our fares, our pricing are among the lowest in the world. However, we also have among the highest costs in the world. And that's because our aviation turbine fuel is expensive. We have generally high taxes. So our airports are actually relatively expensive in large measure because our land in general in India is expensive. And airports obviously use a lot of land. So our costs are high, but our fares are low. And the net result of it is that the actual return on invested capital and equity IRR for our airlines has in fact over the cycle been quite low, which is for us, because we really need to add capacity and we need to be able to expand air connectivity, is a bit of a challenge because we need people to make investments, not just in airlines, but in all the associated ecosystem that goes with that, MRO, catering, ground handling, aerospace manufacturing. All of these are vitally important associated parts of the ecosystem that also need to develop. The demand is there, and it's our job in government to make sure that we can bring down costs sustainably for our airlines and for the other members of our ecosystem so that the aviation industry as a whole can flourish.
The 2-day conference saw diverse panelists assessing the evolution of the socio-political and business landscapes in the country through a mix of panel dialogues and interactive sessions.
I would like our Honourable Minister to say How would you react to things if I were to say, is globalization in retreat?
It can't be a retreat, but of course there are reasons to believe that it is slowed down, it's halting, and there are enough reasons to see measures that are coming out from countries which are till now unpredictable measures. And I would therefore think there are enough reasons for us to believe that there is a churn. Obviously, there are questions being asked, there are challenges being posed, but it's not in retreat.
Mr. Pai?
The world GDP today is $75 trillion. The OECD is about 40, emerging markets is 35. By 2020, the emerging markets will overtake the OECD GDP. And it means what happened 200 years ago when Europe overtook Asia is happening by 2020. And when it happens by 2020, we will see a greater impact because growth will be in the emerging markets. These countries are not growing very fast. They're not grown for the last many years. And this transition is going to create pain because they're leaving off the existing stock of wealth. But the new flow of trade and wealth has diminished. So I think it's a challenge.
There was also a question of the trade treaties we have entered into, where we have not got what we wanted for our people. And there are other issues as well, but how would you respond to this in terms of our strategy to deal with this situation where immigration, our movement of people, is where we are going to face the biggest problem in a retreating globalization scenario?
In today's context, when US or the UK or Australia, soon followed also by New Zealand, when restrictions, these are countries which have stated it out and many are not even stating it out. Restrictions are being imposed on services trade, movement of persons, professionals who you need from one place to another, and these professionals, unlike the migrants, and I'm sorry for this comparison, I protest this comparison wherever I go, the comparison being made for asylum-seeking migrants to be equated with high-level professionals who go for a particular project and who return and again obtain a visa to go again to complete a different project, whether to the same shore or anywhere else. So this false equivalence which is being brought to manage numbers is just a smoke screen behind which many countries do realize that they're going to have to depend on the services trade. Many of the manufacturing sectors have themselves now become, because of the use of technology and digitization, become dependent on services. Eventually, aging societies, whether it is the US, UK, or many of the saturated economies of the European countries or Japan, all need services from these emerging countries. And we will be talking about it, but the absence of a global framework through a multilateral body is clearly felt.
Our engagement with Asia is very tentative.
Well, I think that's certainly been true in the past, though it has been increasing over the past several years. My point was that we need to take a much more proactive look, because this is the part of the world that's going to grow. I think all the issues that have been raised are valid. It's not a very simple thing. We need to be constructive. Like, for example, distinguishing between what are neo-immigrant visas and visibly short-term visas. Maybe when we talk to our Asian neighbors, we need to sort of bring this into the debate. But we have to sort of keep that engagement going in a constructive way.
Mr. Pramanik, can this H-1B visa issue be a sort of a single point agenda of the tech companies in engagement with the US of A, Indian tech companies? Is this the overriding, all-binding constraint of our relationship, or is there a possibility of changing the business model and leveraging it nevertheless for all the benefits that it brings?
So the good news is that I don't think the Indian IT industry has stood still. I think they've, even as way back as 5 years ago, the understanding was very clear. It's nothing to do with visas. It was that cost arbitrage can no longer be the value provided by the Indian IT industry. And therefore, the IT industry has evolved where they have a far better industry understanding. They have a technology understanding. They have a business understanding. And that's what the customers on the other side want. I think the Indian IT industry has evolved. It doesn't, H-1B perhaps will accelerate their move to the new world of digital transformation. Number two is that I think low-level services is no longer going to be required. My guess is that India as well as the developed world will look for skills which are around artificial intelligence, which is around machine learning, which is around analytics, which is around writing or developing software for the cloud. It's about quantum computing. It's going to be in completely different areas. We just need to make sure that we continue to build the talent, and they will then come back to us. They have to. They have no choice.
Digitizing Bharat was the topic of immense interest, where experts deliberated upon the recent measures taken by the Indian government towards making India truly digital.
Post the 8th of November, we saw that sharp spike, and as I pointed out, there was no choice, so people had to go digital. But in the month of January, in the month of February, we've seen those numbers decline as the withdrawal limits were lifted by banks, lifted by the Reserve Bank of India. We've seen people move back to cash. As the SBI chairman Arundhati Bhattacharya told me in a conversation that we had, that her big fear is that people shouldn't go back to their old habits. How concerned are you today, and where do you see this now headed?
Sharing two things. First of all, digital, as you rightly said, digital India is much more than digital payment. It really means about using technology to leapfrog across sectors for India: health, education, nutrition, many other areas where India needs to radically move forward. But on digital payment side, a huge amount of work has been done in the last couple of months. We saw this downward trend in January, February with cash coming back. But March again, we're seeing upward movement. And I think this upward movement is likely to continue simply because there's been so much of technological innovation in this area. First and foremost, UPI has seen a growth of 23%, close to 23%. But more important than that, that India has been able to build a totally interoperable system at the back end, and that has enabled very unique things to happen. You know, the BHIM app is a very, very simple and very easy app to use. And BHIM Aadhaar brings in a huge amount of disruption. It enables you, using your iris or your fingerprint, to do any transaction. It will make things so easy. So what will eventually happen in India is that every single smartphone each one of us will become a walking ATM. We will all use our Aadhaar number or our thumb impression or our iris to do digital transaction. And each one of us, using our mobile phone, can then become a merchant and do transaction for others.
Where do you see the gaps, and what do you believe are the key challenges that still need to be addressed?
Whenever we talk of financial inclusion, we usually tend to talk of financial inclusion on the deposits side and the banking account side, which is what our Jan Dhan has solved. Maybe 25 crore accounts. The bigger issue, or let's say equally big issue, is on the lending side. And there's a huge financial exclusion there. And in my mind, one of the key reasons for such financial exclusion is that almost every bank have a set of programs, and the programs are basically giving loans to people on the basis of whether they file income tax returns or not. And we know only 3% of India file tax returns, and then basically straight away exclude at least 50% of India. So there, in that sense, to solve that financial exclusion is a very big issue. And I think there, the new age technologies, which is artificial intelligence, etc., riding on the platform that has been built through the UPI and a singular identity of Aadhaar, is going to make a big change. We are seeing such change.
What would be the key opportunities that you think that we can capitalize on as we move towards the mainstreaming of digitization?
I'm as optimistic as Mr. Amitabh Kant is, and therefore I also tend to ignore how far we are from where we need to be, but really enjoy the way journey has taken place in last couple of years. The progress we have made both on digitization and especially on the financial inclusion side has been a great journey. But on digitization, without being misunderstood, I also believe in as much in the progress we have made, but we are still have a long journey to do. Despite the fact that we got 1 billion plus mobile connections, we have 450,000 towers across the country. The way we are moving internet, we are going for BharatNet. The BHIM has been a great success. It is moving in the right direction, but the one big challenge is the population we have. We are not a country. We are a subcontinent. I mean, doing it for 140 crore people is not a joke, and it's going to take its own time before we can reach the last human being in our country and sincerely call ourselves digital. The second most important thing to my mind is the literacy. Even if you look at digitization today, or even if you look at financial inclusion, one reason why we are not able to open bank account for everyone despite a great success of Prime Minister Jan Dhan Yojana is that last excluded segment. You need to have financial literacy over there. If you are not able to get the financial literacy right, the excluded will remain excluded.
What do you believe needs to be done on the digital infrastructure side?
I think the real challenge for the country is to spread internet across the country. There are dark and grey spots, and the challenge this year is to cover about 150,000 panchayats out of the allocation of 10,000 crores that has been made. So the target this year is that we must reach out to 150,000 panchayats, and again another 150,000 panchayats for next year. But in addition to that, we are looking at several dark and grey spots which we'll cover through Wi-Fi spots.